Hello and welcome to day 54. I'm Tom Nyback, and you're at 365 days towards racial change. Well, welcome and thanks for hanging out with us. We're here exploring Black issues and white issues, how those relationships, um, the dynamics of those relationships in America. I'm here to tease out two trains of thought. The first train of thought has two veins, and one is, does Black slavery mind of oppression, vulnerability, submission prevail and can it be passed down from generation to generation? And conversely, does white privilege and entitlement get passed down through generation to generation? And these dynamics still prevail today. The second vein is, does are blacks playing? I want blacks to play the economic game in America. I think blacks are not aware of how much power they really have. It's not about getting a job and hoping that some other super rich, powerful white corporation makes us rich and wealthy and secure in America to put us in a place where we've got enough for retirement and things like that. That's not their function. It never was. And there's ways to bypass a lot of that because money's green and it has no. It's money is truly colorblind. You know, we blacks give this power to white industry and establishments and other cultures, Asians as well in particular, and it's unacceptable to think that our only position, our only chance at equality is founded in some other in another race that's antagonistic to blacks and resistant to black progress and success. So we talk about those issues. Talk about them because a while ago I was introduced to the work of a man named Dr.Claud, and he knows how to articulate these issues much better than I. I've read 3 of his books. First one is a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Second one was Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. We're going through a series in that book right now. Going through some myths. We'll get to all that in a moment. Third book I read was Powernomics, his national plan to empower Black America. While that work is more than a decade old, these are still relevant ideas and still things we can employ in today's world. If you look behind me, you'll see the hashtag #UsToo. I like keeping that up there. That's more focused on Black women's issues, but it's a very open forum. You can visit there and check in with them and see what the latest on their movement is. And also, Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, is a kind of a Facebook for Black folks there, another forum. I'm sure there are many. Those are just the 2 I've been exposed to and that I checked in on periodically. You find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. He's also involved with the Heritage Institute. If you're business-minded, entrepreneurial leanings and things like that, go to theblackbusinessschool.com. Find Dr. Boyce Watkins there, and he's surrounded by a very articulate and able crew of business people, lawyers, and things like that. Price tag's a little too much for me. I don't like subscriptions either. So, but I hopefully maybe someday I can get further involved with his work over there. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work from the mid-1800s, white female abolitionist. We look in on that story, track the life of a slave named Tom, and get involved with his adventures. So it's not, or conversation here isn't always factual and racial remorse and all that. We look at fictional racial remorse and things like that. But it's good work. We just saw in chapter 5, Tom just found out that he is going to be sold. He finds out from a slave who's running away with her son, who she found out that he's been sold. So she's taken off, heading north. And it brings out a point about black folks. Black folks need to holler back out of their dysfunction sometimes. We don't do that enough. You know, if we're not giving ourselves a fighting chance if we just go ourselves headlong into dysfunction and vulnerability, no matter what the circumstances, and not holler back and say, hey, there's a problem here, don't come this way, or watch out if you're going that way, and things. We just don't do that. We just perpetuate dysfunction and just let it sit there, grow, fester, and dominate us. White society's counting on that, and other cultures and races, antagonistic to blacks and in competition with blacks for wealth and resources in America, count on blacks being passive and submissive and falling apart at the latest dysfunction that hits the block. Today we're talking about cultural diversity, day 54 here, and we're going through myths here in Dr. Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth. And cultural diversity is a myth because it exists in a way that it's a good catchphrase, political word that makes people think of inclusiveness and all that, but not for blacks. Not for blacks. Like, when I tell my circle, and my circle is primarily white. When I tell my circle of people that I'm making videos about black marginalization, about educating black folks, about economic positions and other races in competition with us, they immediately will mention the homeless, women, gays, immigrants. They deflect off of focus on blackness and black issues, and it's very irritating. And they think that their conversation is on the same level as marginalized, oppressed black folks and populations. It's not. The black issues, black problems in America are exclusive to blacks. And we're not, anytime these groups come in, especially immigrants, who are antagonistic and in competition with blacks, they don't want blacks to rise up and succeed. They don't reciprocate black business and things like that. Maybe we'll get into that in a moment. But it's not the reality when these other groups equate themselves with the black experience. They're not black. The black experience includes segregation, Jim Crow, semi-slavery, slavery, specific wording in the Constitution and various laws to exclude and marginalize blacks, period. Whatever verbiage exists to, we'll say women, for instance, women they had the suffrage and they're trying to get the right to vote and things like that. Well, that's a valid point. But, white women got to vote before black women. You know what I mean? So, it's always watered down. It dilutes the black potency in the argument. We're not giving ourselves a fighting chance when we align ourselves with the marginalized experience of any other group. So, you know, when I'm having these conversations and explaining to my circle what I'm doing here at 365 Days Towards Racial Change, they'll always come back with some other group attaching to the black experience, and I have to come back and nudge them further in the argument and say, you know, I'm not talking about homelessness, women, gays, immigrants, things like that. I'm talking about black marginalization and oppression in America. And that's what we need to get through and understand here. You know, immigrants don't share the black experience. Women don't share the black experience. Like, you can be black and be that and you can get your little breadcrumbs and come to the table, but don't be overtly black in that experience. Trust me. So cultural diversity, like he has here, a term used to equate blacks with other groups, though they are not. But we're a unique people here in America. We got to get that. Anytime we align ourselves or someone else aligns themselves with us, they're taking away our potency and power. They're taking away our ability to be recognized in our uniqueness at America's in America's social landscape. You see, you know, just a quick side note. You know, it's February, almost out of February here. Got about a week to go, and just as negative black concerns are dying down, we got two figures that just blew up a whole lot of traction that black folks were gaining. And Dr. Anderson, he jokes about this in type. Oh, we sabotage ourselves so much. And we can be almost counted on to sabotage ourselves. It's almost comical. It's sad that we get it together. Even my personal experience, I can't tell you how many times I've built up my life. I've had a good foundation. I started building a structure on top. I've stayed away from drugs and alcohol. You know, some of those shortcomings and things like that. And out of the blue, I'll make that deadly decision to just tear my life apart and just tear it all down. And now I'm back under someone else's control, white control. And that, I mean, that's goes back to that first part of that first vein of thought. You know, is the black experience so challenging that we just inherently want to be underneath someone telling us what to do, how to do it, controlling our lives. You know, are we better off incarcerated and whatnot? You know, so we got two black figures in America just have undone so much within just a month. It's been over, so here we go. Starting all over again because these Sambos want to, you know, in their mind, they think they're doing the right thing. They believe in what they're doing. Nobody ever did anything that they didn't feel was right. Even if it's stealing, lying, anything. There's the mind of that individual is convinced it's right. Just ask me. I'm a perfect example of that. So blacks don't get any cultural diversity don't get any civil rights. Because if it be culturally diverse, if blacks came to the table in their blackness and participated freely and openly, but there's a stigma, there's a spirit, a geist that, first off, it presupposes blacks as a threat, and it demands, the spirit demands that blacks be non-threatening and all that. And now, I hate to use those aspects of the argument because then it's like blacks are always militant and walking around with attitudes, and that's not the truth either. It's it's where we're taught to respond, we're conditioned to respond so as not to threaten white folks or any other groups. That's why some of our entertainers, talk show hosts, game show hosts, athletes can move about so lucratively and freely within white society. But if you got a Colin Kaepernick or somebody like that who resist the spirit of the Star Spangled Banner and aspects of American creed and culture, then that person's going to be attacked and going to need to expend considerable resources to get back into the mainstream. Go Colin. He's finally getting some of his payback and his due here in America. So our civil rights, cultural diversity, things like that, we didn't do that for gays and women specifically, and immigrants. It's almost like the black experience is the crucible. It's where you do your test on how to make things equal, and other groups benefit from that experiment. It's really sad to see some of the groups that we can mention that we can cite as freely moving about on America's economic landscape are the Chinese, Japanese, Mexicans, Italians, Greeks, French, East Indians, Vietnamese, Cambodians, and these are all mentioned the groups that Dr. Anderson has pointed out. But then what do they have in common? Food. If a group consistently and easily has their restaurants on main lines, on main streets and main roads, then that group is participating in the America's economic landscape. But those black restaurants, Ethiopians and stuff like that, oh, they're out there. Those African restaurants and Jamaicans and stuff like that, soul food and barbecue, that's going to be controlled primarily by the white sector. Soul food, you would expect some black folks to be in some ownership, but that kind of thing is a minority. Well, you can go anywhere and find Chinese, Mexican. Like it's a revelation of what and who's really experiencing cultural diversity here in America. Now remember, it was a little while back, I mentioned Dr. Anderson. He mentions how some groups, especially Asians, are, mandated, instructed to avoid blacks in America. I see the way Asians look at me. Asians don't reciprocate black business. They don't do business with blacks. Even when blacks are offering discounts and trying to get their business, They explain they're being racist, and they're not dealing with blacks. They don't want to see blacks uh, rise up and participate, become wealthy, because they're in competition with black folks. So that's the Asian, definitely Asian thought. You know, it's illegal, but go and try to prove that kind of thing. We can write things on the books. I think I've been saying this for the past couple days. We can put a lot of great ideas on the books and the Constitution and legalese and law and stuff like that. But there's no way to prove that without expending great amounts of resources or getting them to openly um, say that they are practicing that kind of racism in business, and and where we stay at hotels and things like that. I remember I was strung out years ago, and I went to this Chinese-owned, Asian-owned, I don't know if they're Chinese or not, but Asian-owned hotel, and they put me up in the worst room. I'm strung out. I'm already conditioned to take the worst, and it's middle of summer, and I hear uh, air conditioning's running upstairs and stuff. And this Chinaman, he just put on a big old smile and told me this was the best room everybody wants. They've got a fan, and it's all messed up, and you can tell it's the room. Uh, it's the dirty room that you put people in, and I settled for that, because I know better now. But it's like, yeah, I ended up getting up out of there anyway. I wasn't feeling it. Now, I'd like to turn a little bit, though, towards black responsibility. I talked at the top of this piece about the runaway slave who came and informed Tom that he was sold. Blacks are not, at least in my experience, they are not actively participating in their education, in their home life, in upbringing, in understanding how money works in America, in the world. All these are important aspects that were just so left to chance. You're talking about, boy, you're so surprised that so many black folks are incarcerated, and there's so much um, single moms and dysfunction in the black community, but I don't see anybody instructing blacks. I don't see any kind of training in the home. Now, one thing is, parents you can't pass on what you don't have. So here's the generational question that I'm asking about the sources of black dysfunction, essentially from slavery, the late 1500s, on hundreds of years of oppression and manipulation, marginalization of blacks in America. It's very disappointing. It's disappointing, discouraging. You know, us blacks just keep on in our dysfunction and have so much to say about white entitlement, oppression, and whatnot. Let's correct ourselves as a community and really begin. If if I as a parent don't know, then I need to go and aggressively seek that information. It's the internet, instant knowledge. Everybody's got internet on their phones. Everything's unlimited. It's so sad that there's this level of ignorance in the black community. We can't expect to rise up. We're still waiting for somebody else to make the decision to prosper us. We prosper ourselves. There's plenty, like outside the door, There's racism, there's prejudice, there's the murdering of blacks and stuff like that. But what about inside the home? We're not doing anything in the home. You know, you just go on divorce, laying people and stuff like that. You know, I don't even care about whatever your morality, religion, lack of religion, political views. I don't care about any of that. I care about how you are training and the atmosphere in the home about critiquing, understanding, being able to articulate your experience. You know, do you want to change? You know, do you want something different? You know, do you want your kids to have more, have better, things like that? You know, well, have you taught them about the stock market? Do you understand the stock market? Let's talk about how money really works in America. It's not about working for someone else. An employer is incapable of elevating you above their position. You're never going to be better, have more than the person you're working for. You know, unless it's yourself making it happen for you. Then you got a fighting chance. But as long as you're going to work and hoping for the best, you ain't going to get too far. And you're going to wonder why your life is stagnant, why you're on an economic flat line in America. I can speak authoritatively on that because that is my experience. I know that. Why, decades ago, I was scratching my head. It's like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm doing what they say. I'm doing what they say to the letter. And I'm still falling back in the same holes, the same traps. I had to start educating myself. I had to start empowering myself. I like to read books in my hand, not on my phone. I don't like that. But I like reading books, and I stumbled onto books. There's a nice quote, a guy named Tony Robbins. I hear him say it a lot. I don't think it's original. He says, "Success leaves clues." And I run into these awesome, great books. I think one of the books, anyway, that was a turning point for me is a book called The Optimistic Child, I think it was called, about empowering children to think for themselves, showing them at early ages aspects of adult life, maybe excluding sex, but showing them grocery shopping, budgeting, money, negotiating with salespeople. Wow, what a phenomenal book! And consequently, from reading that book, my life took a big pivot, towards what was happening in my experience. You know, uh, you know. So I want to see Black America doing that more instead of waiting until we're 30, 40, 50 years old and then we're jammed up behind some sexual issue or some money problems and things like that. It doesn't have to be that way. If we can just give ourselves some time every day to check it in, making sure our experience is proper here in America. So, you might be saying, well, we got talk show hosts, athletes. Those are the Black folks that are safe. They're safe Black Americans. You don't have to be militant, but they are conformed and conditioned to the white power to a degree that they don't even know how to. They become a black, what Dr. Anderson calls an overclass, and they just go on in their privilege and almost practically forget about white folks. Yeah, they may have funds, they may give money to colleges and stuff like that. I'm not talking about all black successful people, but you can bet your bottom dollars that you ain't gonna find a whole lot of these top people of black up in the upper echelons of America's economic landscape doing a whole lot to find some to overtly help blacks and get some things done. I know Dr. Anderson, he's got some court cases going and things like that, legal battles, so he's doing his little part. But there's a lot to be done. Everybody could be doing something. My time is up. I'm running over. Again, I'm Tomlin's Nyback. That's 365 days towards racial change. Day 54 out of the way. We're rolling right along. I'll see you tomorrow.